good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and remember that context is everything. My name's John Michael. I'm the founder and CEO of Context is Everything Media Network. And to you who stole my backpack in Charleston, South Carolina, if you steal my intellectual property, I don't think there's much that I can do about it, but I would look into my legal options. Yeah, I had never mind. Founder and CEO, Context is Everything Media Network, John Michael Monroe here, reading a textbook, 2001 World History. Should I just take that all out? I don't know if I should have said that. Give them ideas. Either way, Context is Everything, founder, CEO. Yeah, it doesn't make much sense, does it? I shouldn't have said that. It's probably hard to follow. Founder and CEO of Context is Everything. I'm reading this textbook cover to cover to build my context for history. This is chapter 7, section 3 on ancient America, peoples of the North Americas. I added the there. People of North America. Setting the scene. Yikes. Hopefully I can read better than last week. Climate and natural resources had profound effects on daily life for the first people of North America. A traditional Southwest song reflects how the natural world provided beauty as well as the necessities of life. The whole Southwest was house made down. It was made of pollen and of rain. The land was old and harvesting. There were many colors on the hills and plains, and there was dark wilderness in the mountains beyond. The land was tilled and strong, it was beautiful all around. Just made that up right now. The whole Southwest was house made of dawn. It was made of pollen and of rain. The land was old and everlasting. There was many colors on the hills and on the plains. And there was dark wilderness, and on the mountains beyond, the land was tilled and strong, and it was beautiful all around. I'm telling you, the guy who stole my backpack in the Planet Fitness in South Carolina, I don't like you. But I can't blame you. You might be going through hard times, or you might have a compulsive problem where you like to steal people's stuff. And I don't approve of that, and it makes me angry, even though this was like 5 months ago. I just realized, there's a flash drive in there that has information in it that I value. And if whatever I value is of worth, then somebody might value it as well. I really got to stop talking about this and read about North American, South Americans. That song that I just read and sang is quoted from the Native Americans and Illustrated History by Ballantine. I've heard that name before. The impact of the environment stretched far beyond the Southwest. Hundreds of cultural groups emerged in the present-day United States and Canada. For centuries, they lived by hunting, fishing, and gathering wild plants. As farming spread north from Middle America, many people raised corn and other food crops. Some people farmed so successfully that they built large permanent settlements. Here, we will look at the earliest of these farming cultures in the desert Southwest and the Mississippi Valley. The desert Southwest is the first heading. More than 1,000 years ago, fields of corn, beans, and squash bloomed in the desert Southwest. The farmers who planted these fields were called Hohokums, or vanished ones. By their later descendants, the Pimas, or the Papagos, To farm the desert, they built a complex irrigation system. The Hohokams lived near the Gila River in present-day Arizona. They may have acquired skills such as irrigation from civilizations of Middle America. They built temple mounds and ball courts as the Mayas did. The Hohokams survived until about 1500 AD, when drought seemed to have forced them to leave their settlements. Anasazi. The best-known society of the Southwest was the Anasazi. They lived in what is today the Four Corners region of Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah. Between about 900 AD and 1300, the Anasazi built large villages called Pueblos by the Spanish. Remains of Pueblo Bonito still stand in New Mexico. The village consisted of a huge complex with 800 rooms that housed about 6,000 people. Builders used stone and adobe bricks to erect crescent-shaped compound rising 5 stories high. Wow. At the center of the great complex was a plaza. There, the Anasazi dug their kiva, a large underground chamber used for religious ceremonies. Paintings on the walls show their concern with weather, including storms that might damage crops. Cliff dwellings in the late 1100s, in the late 1100s, the Anasazi began building housing complexes in the shadow of canyon walls. There were cliffs where the cliffs offered protection from raiders. The largest of these cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde, in present-day Colorado, had over 200 rooms. People had to climb ladders to reach their fields on the flatlands above the canyon floor below. In the late 1200s, a long drought forced the Anasazi to abandon their cliff dwellings. Without rain, they could no longer live in large settlements. Attacks by Navajos and Apaches may have contributed further to their decline. Anasazi traditions survived, however, among the Hopis and other Pueblo Indians of the present-day southwestern United States. What? Anasazi traditions survived, however, among the Hopis and other Pueblo Indians in present-day southwest United States. No? Part of the reason why I'm reading this book is also to become a better reader. Not a great reader. Okay. Mound Builders. New heading. Far to the east of the Anasazi in the Mississippi and Ohio valleys, other farming cultures emerged as early as 700 BC. The Adena and Hopewell people left behind giant earthen mounds. The Adena and Hopewell people left behind giant earthen mounds. Some mounds were cone-shaped, while others were made in the shape of an animal. The Great Serpent Mound in Ohio wriggles and twists for almost a quarter mile. Wow. Objects of the Hopewell mounds show that traders extended their influence over a wide area. They brought back shells and shark teeth from the Gulf of Mexico and copper from the Great Lakes region. Skilled artisans hammered and shaped the copper into fine ornaments. Cahokia, subheading under Mound Builders. By 800 AD, these early cultures had disappeared, but a new people, the Mississippians, gained influence. As their culture spread, the Mississippians built clusters of earthen mounds and ever larger towns and ceremonial centers. Their greatest center, Cahokia, in present-day Illinois, housed as many as 40,000 people by about 1200 AD. Cahokia boasted at least 60 mounds. On the top of the mounds stood the homes of the rulers and nobles. The largest mound probably had a temple on its summit, where priests and rulers offered prayers and sacrifices to the sun. Archaeologists think that this temple mound shows the influence of Middle American civilizations. Middle American civilizations meaning Central American, as I understand these 2001 terms. Heirs of the Mound Builders, subheading under Mound Builders. The Mississippians left no written records, and their cities had disappeared by the time the Europeans reached the area. Still, their traditions survived among the Natchez, Natchez, Natchez people who ruled the Great Sun, had absolute power. Let me read that again. Still, their traditions survived among the Natchez people, whose ruler, the Great Sun, had absolute power. He and his family lived on the top of pyramid mounds. Pyramid mounds. Diverse regional cultures. So, there's a new heading. Diverse regional cultures. Many other groups of Native Americans emerged in Northern America prior to 1500 AD. Modern scholars have identified 10 culture areas based on the environments in which people lived. The Arctic, subarctic, northwest coast, California, Great Basin, Plateau, Southwest, Great Plains, Eastern Woodlands, and Southeast. In each area, people adapted to geographic conditions that influenced their ways of life. Over here I have a map of different cultures, different groups of Native Americans. You're going to see these all are going to be backwards because of the camera. So, yeah, just look it up. Or you can do a little screen grab, rotate, and you can look at it yourself. Here, we will look at in greater detail at the distinct ways of life that developed in three regions: the Arctic, the Northwest Coast, and the Eastern Woodlands. Subheading: A Frozen World. In the far north, the Inuits adapted to harsh climates using the resources of frozen land to survive. Small bands lived by hunting and fishing. Seals and other sea mammals provided them with food, skins for clothing, bones for needles and tools, and oil for cooking. They paddled kayaks in open waters or used dog sleds to transport goods across the ice. In some areas, Inuits constructed igloos, or dome-shaped homes made of snow and ice. In others, they built sod dwellings that were partially underground. Subheading: A Land of Plenty. The people of the Northwest Coast lived in far richer environment than the Inuits. Rivers teemed with salmon, and the Pacific Ocean offered other fish and sea mammals. Hunters tracked deer, wolves, and bears in the forest. In the Land of Plenty, people built large permanent villages with homes made of wood. They traded their surplus goods, gaining wealth that was shared in ceremonies like the potluck dinner. At this ceremony, which continues in Canada today, a person of rank and wealth distributes lavish gifts to large numbers of guests. By accepting the gifts, the guests acknowledge the host's high status. Subheading. The Iroquois League. The eastern woodlands stretching from the Atlantic coasts to the Great Lakes was home to a number of groups, including the Iroquois. The Iroquois? They cleared land and built villages in the forest. While women farmed, men hunted, and frequently warred against rival nations. According to Iroquois tradition, the prophet Dekanawidah. According to Iroquois tradition, the prophet Dekanawidah urged rival Iroquois nations to stop their constant wars. In the late 1500s, he became one of the founders of the unique political system known as the Iroquois League. This was an alliance of 5 nations who spoke the same language and shared similar traditions. The Iroquois League did not always succeed in keeping the peace. Still, it was the best organized political group north of Mexico. Member nations governed their own villages but met jointly in a council when they needed to address larger issues. Only men sat at the council, but each clan had a clan mother who could name or depose members of the council. The Iroquois League emerged just at the time when Europeans arrived in the Americas. Encounters with Europeans would take fearful toll on the people of North America and topple the Aztec and Incan empires. Interesting. Let me just quickly list through the map that I see over here. I'm going to note the region wherein the Native American culture was, but I'm going to list through from Alaska across Canada to like Washington State, across the United States, and into the Mexico region. So in the subarctic region, so we're talking about like Alaska and the top of Canada, the Beavers, Crees, Inuits, and Kutchins. These folks lived as nomadic hunters and food gatherers in cold climates, honored the ocean, weather, and animal spirits. Okay, so that's your Alaska and Canada area. California, Great Basin and Plateau. So like California up to like up the coast. Nez Perces, Pomos, and Shoshones. They lived as hunters and gatherers in small family groups, ate mainly fish, berries, and acorns. In the Southwest, Hohokams, Hopis, Navajos, and Pueblos. They lived in villages, in homes made of adobe, built irrigation systems to grow corn and other crops, honored earth, sky, and wind spirits. Southeast, Cherokees and Natchez. Cherokees and Natchez grew corn, squash, beans, and other crops, held yearly green corn ceremony, and marked the end of the year to mark the end of the year and celebrate the harvest. Northwest. Why wasn't that? Whatever. Northwest coast. Bella Culas, Coos, Quakiutls, Kwakiutls, Kwakiutls, and Tlingits, Belaculas, Kus, Kwakiutis, and Tlingits. They lived in villages, benefited from rich natural resources in forests, rivers, and oceans, held potlucks or ceremonial dinners where the host family gave gifts to show their status. Great Plains, the Arapahoes, Blackfeet, Cheyennes, Comanches, wow, Crows, Lakotas, Mandans, and Osages. They lived in teepees, animals hunted by... What? They lived in teepees. They hunted animals, grew crops, that the women grew crops, relied on buffalo to meet basic needs for food and shelter and clothing. My reading is atrocious. Eastern Woodlands, Algonquins, Chippewas, Hurons, Iroquois, Lenni-Lenapes, Miamis, Pequotes, and Shawnees. Lived in farming villages, but also hunted for food. Long houses shared by several families. Women held social, political power. Interesting stuff, but didn't read very well. Remember, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Context is everything, all this. And if you stole my backpack in South Carolina, I forgive you. Please send it back. I don't actually need it, but don't steal my intellectual property, please. Bye-bye.